Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Westport Board of Health, November 1st, 2023 meeting, which I'm calling to order with the following announcements. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded. And if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move right into the director's written report. Any questions on that? If not, I'll turn to Matt for further updates.
Okay, so just as a reminder that the health department's offering flu vaccines, standard and high dose, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday through the town nurse's office. The town nurse's office is closed on Tuesdays. And please call the town nurse at 508-636-1030 to check the availability. And just on a side note, the nurse's office is closed from 12 to 1 for lunch. COVID-19, as we enter into the fall season, Massachusetts has seen an uptick in COVID-19 cases. Keeping up to date on COVID vaccination status and the use of a mask in a high-risk setting will help reduce the risk of death or severe illness. Free COVID test kits are available at the Board of Health office and town nurse's office. As a reminder, if you have COVID-19-like symptoms, you should get tested and stay home pending the results. If you test positive by either PCR or rapid antigen test, notify your close contacts and stay in isolation for 5 days. For the latest COVID-19 isolation and exposure guidance, please visit mass.gov and just click on the COVID-19 tab and it'll take you to the guidance. So Board of Health, last week we were on a skeleton crew. I was at the conference and we just had some people out for the week, but we got through just fine. Transfer station has been really busy. We've been seeing been really busy weekend, Saturday and Sunday, so and that's a plus. That's good. I will say that recycling costs went up a bit. When we talk about the budget, I can talk a little bit about that. Animal control, Nick is 95% through the barn book inspections. So I anticipate we'll have those all wrapped up by the end of November, which is great. We'll be ahead of schedule on that. That's all I had.
Anything interesting from the conference?
Nothing real interesting. It was great. Good. DEP did some of the tracks. There was some outside vendors that did some seminars on septic tanks and pumps, which was interesting to sit in on. And we did some interesting. There was a harm reduction one that Olive and I sat in on. That was really good. And it was a good conference. It was packed. It was sold out. And I can't remember the last time that was at capacity. So it was very good. Good weather too.
Good one?
Good weather.
Yeah. Okay. I'll do it under for board member updates. I have a question for you then at that point. Okay,
Yeah.
that's...
Do you mind going upstairs and grab some documents for you guys that I forgot to bring down?
Sure. Why don't we go ahead and take, before we do the Director of Blue Plans, we can do the minutes. That doesn't need Matt. Any questions or concerns on the October 16th, 2023 minutes?
Not for me, Madam Chair.
I'm fine.
Okay, so I move that we approve the minutes for October 16th, 2023.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Okay. While we're waiting for Matt, I'm just going to send this around, get the signatures. Nancy will be happy. We'll have taken care of that. Thank you. Thank you. And while we're waiting, just a reminder, we did adopt revisions to the local septic regulation at our last meeting on October 16th. Those are now on the website. The main change is an extension of the deadline for cesspool upgrades to February 1, 2028. So an additional 2 years to allow people more time to plan their finances, get plans in place and so on and so forth. We had a lot of good news around, and I think there'll be more discussion later, around the septic tax credit, various loan programs, and so on to make it more financially feasible for folks. So that will help us move forward with getting those cesspools out of the ground and improving water quality, both drinking water and riverine water. So that's one announcement. Anything else, sort of general public announcement we can do?
Blood drive tomorrow? Is that?
Oh, yes. Do you have the details in your head?
I know it's over at St. John the Baptist across the street from the annex, or up on
Yeah.
Main Road,
Right.
Main Road.
What is it?
It's the blood
Red
drive.
Cross Blood Drive.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Town nurse sponsors, co-sponsors.
Yes, and I believe everybody has to sign up in order to donate blood. I don't think it's something that you just walk into. It's usually, there's a pre-registration through the Red Cross.
It's more efficient if you pre-register. Sometimes
Yeah.
they can take walk-ins. So that is at St. John the Baptist tomorrow, Thursday, November 2nd. I believe the hours are 10 to 3 or 10 to 2.
Yeah,
But check on the Red Cross website, www.redcross.org, I believe. All right, any other general announcements we can make?
As distinct from updates?
Yeah.
Okay, all
I
right,
think
so I
just,
don't have it. I don't.
Yeah,
have it.
updates.
I mean, I guess I could say, just because I know about this, that at the, today from 6 to 8, although this will probably be over by the time anyone would watch this, unless they're watching live. I don't think anyone can watch live. Anyway, there's a meeting about Route 6 corridor planning, which is...
Is that the library?
At the library, yeah. Which, in talking to Mike Burris about it, is mostly going to focus on discussing potential zoning revisions for future development of the Route 6 corridor, but also is going to touch on the sewer plan. So I'd been planning to go because I thought maybe originally it was mostly going to focus on the sewer, but I don't think it's going to do that, so I'm going to take a pass on that. But it's at 6 to 8 today at the library.
Okay, Matt, we just did a couple of public...
Nancy's making copies of everything and walk it down for the budget on that.
Oh, okay.
On that.
Later on,
Other
okay.
business, so, yeah,
So
probably
we-
5 minutes or so.
Yeah, so we've taken care of the minutes. We did a couple of announcements. We'll turn over to Matt for director-approved plan review.
Okay, we have a repair on a 60,984 square foot lot at 169 Brain Point Road. 3 bedrooms utilizing a stone bed. It's been through Concom and it is replacing a cesspool for an Allen Rosen. We have new construction, 3 bedrooms on an 82,557 square foot lot, 131 Pine Hill Road for William Macris, using a stone bed in the singular. Concom, at the time this was done, Concom was pending, so, but still, we'll make sure it gets through there. We have new construction, 4-bedroom home on 150,083 square foot lot. Gifford Road for Corey and Jennifer Cavallo, utilizing a stone bed and a singular. And we have a 3-bedroom repair on a 29,614 square foot lot, 26 Tickle Road for Thomas McGarrett Estate, utilizing a quick form and a deed restriction is required.
Okay, thanks. So the two new constructions would require the total nitrogen twice a year testing. Anything else of note? If not, I'll take a motion to endorse those plans.
So moved with the following condition, that the 131 Pine Hill Road, pending a Concom review, and 26 Tickle Road, a 3-bedroom deed restriction.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve those 4 plans with those conditions. All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay, thank you. On first variance is at 10:30, so we can move into board member updates. First discussion is proposed FY25 budget. And I'll turn it over to Matt. You've all just received a copy for a review and discussion.
Sure. So, for the FY25 proposed budget, for animal control, transfer station, and the Board of Health, all wages and salaries increased by 3%. So anything on the personnel side of the budget increased because of the 3% increase. On animal control, we're eliminating the part-time animal control position, which was FY24 approved for $20,000. I'm proposing that we move down $7,500 into the overtime to cover any overtime that Nick may have to incur, because it's going to be a one-man band with this. And then we'll end up returning, and we're going to leave $5,000 in case we do have to call in a consultant or a contractor at some point, I guess, to like a temporary help that works for the town.
Yeah, okay.
Anyways, what that all does to the budget is brings the wages and salaries down to $67,443 from an FY24 approved $73,203. So it's roughly a $6,000 decrease from last year in that side of the budget. On the
And just to clarify, for expenses, you were told you had to keep everything level funded, correct?
yes,
And there's only one minor decrease because of one less person for clothing allowance. That's where that decrease came in. Okay.
that was, so everything's level funded with that minor decrease.
Okay.
Transfer station, again, all the wages and salaries increased by 3%, which decreased everything by $1,000. Because when we did the budget last year, we were still trying to hire a transfer station worker, Class B hoisting license, which was at a higher rate. But we hired an attendant, which is at a much lower rate. So even with the 3% proposed increase, it decreased the overall side of that budget by $1,000.
Mhm.
Expenses, the clothing allowance increased from $1,500 to $1,725. That's per the union contract. It went from $500 a person to $575 a person. The recycling program increase is proposed to go from $16,000 to $20,000 because the cost of recycling went up. We're tracking this year to spend $21,000 on a budget of $16,000 for that particular line item.
Mm.
Tire disposal increased a bit, so we were increasing it from, proposing an increase from $800 to $900. Board of Health, wages and salaries, that side of the budget, again, just a 3% increase. And Board of Health expenses, uniforms and clothing increased from $1,000 to $1,150 for the union contract. Everything else was level funded.
Just note that the 5105 line item went up because there were a little bit more than 3% because there were position upgrades, correct?
5105.
Clerk, full-time?
Well, that increase, because mid-year this year, when the union contract was settled, I guess, certain positions got an increase. They got a title change and an increase in pay, so it happened mid-year.
Yeah,
So the budget is reflecting that plus a 3% increase.
right, yeah, I just wanted to, okay, explain that, because
And I will say a well-deserved
absolutely.
promotion. So, this had gone to Jim, but I told him that we weren't gonna meet with this, on this until today. And there may be revisions if you guys had any, thing else you wanted to see changed.
I just had I don't know, call it a curiosity question, just because on the recycling cost increase, is there a particular, recyclable that is going up as compared to the others?
The cost of for the TVs, the smoke detectors, the mercury, those costs have gone up from the company that comes and gets them for us.
Right,
It, went up enough to, throw us higher on our costs.
okay, so it wasn't like the paper, cans, plastic stuff?
No, the tipping fees for all that, we don't get anything back right now on cardboard, the metal
Right.
prices are way down.
Right, right,
But we, yeah,
so it's just those specialized,
yeah.
okay,
So that would be something that when we reevaluate fees, we may have to boost theirs a little more.
Well, I mean, one of the things we don't charge for, and, I brought this up over the last nearly 6 years, was smoke detectors.
Mhm.
They cost us, a good amount of money to get rid of, $15 to $25 a piece. We don't charge, so, there's positive sides to charging, and there's a downside to charging for them. And we definitely don't want to see them in the road or in the trash. We definitely want to see them, being disposed of the proper way, so I think it bears further discussion.
Does the Watershed Alliance take those when they do the electronic recycling? Do you know?
I'm sorry.
I was asked, the Watershed Alliance, when they do their electronic cycling, is that one of the things
Yeah,
that
they would take that.
they would take it, and is there a fee, do you know, for the?
No, I don't think there's any fees for those, but I don't know for sure.
Because that might be something
I think
that,
it's just larger items that they charge fees for, but I don't think for smoke
because that might
detectors.
be something that if we gather those, and when they do the recycling, then we just bring those so that it doesn't cost the town money.
You'll have to see if there's a cost on your end if you get, a couple hundred smoke detectors.
Yeah, but we should confirm that for, I guess.
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
next
'cause
year.
that-
Look
That
into
would be
that.
worth following
I
up
mean,
on.
I think it is all residential, so it's just a matter of, so we should, can follow up on that. But the reason that you don't want to dispose of it is because all our trash gets incinerated, and I think it's mercury that's in the smoke detector that then gets vaporized and goes up into the air, which
Yeah,
is
which we don't want.
a
So we
toxic
don't want to,
pollutant.
right. We don't want people
Not,
to put it in the trash.
Because
Yeah,
that might be something even we could be thinking about as things are coming in. If there's Watershed
Right.
Alliance has done the
right,
electronic recycling, is there a
Right.
way that it would even be
Yeah.
cheaper for us if it cost us to
Yeah.
bring them
Yeah.
than how we would manage that, but
Yeah.
there could be
Yeah.
some savings.
Because I know
right.
that,
Or even if there is a cost, it could be just a negotiated cost, which would be a lot less than a per unit item that we're paying under what we're doing.
yeah. Okay, so we'll if you can follow up
Yeah.
with
I
your
will. Yeah,
connections,
Yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I am trying to negotiate a contract with Zero Waste on plastics to see if we can get if we go on a contract with them, if we can get our tipping fees down for that, so.
Okay.
So we're always looking for ways to save the town money.
Yes.
Matt is very creative about that, so. Any other questions or comments on the budget? If not, I entertain a motion to approve the proposed budget for animal control, transfer station, and Board of Health as
So-
proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the proposed budgets for those three departments. All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you, Matt.
I will just add that we're very early in the fiscal year. And from February, March, I mean,
Might change.
I always watch the budget, but, something drastic happens and maybe a last minute revision we'll have to make.
Yeah, life throws you curveballs, and we'll have to revisit if we need to, hopefully not. Okay, thank you. Let's turn to board member updates, and I'll start with Phil.
Okay, so when I submitted the article to the Shorelines on the septic tax credit, I had an exchange with Ted Hayes in which he had said from Shorelines, and he had commented that he had seen the meeting at which we increased the timeline for the cesspool upgrades and anticipated that he would put information of that in the Shorelines. And then it didn't make it in. And then, so when I saw earlier this week that it wasn't going to make it in, I asked him whether it was going to make it in this week. So I spoke to him on Monday, I guess. And so then he asked me to to contact him about it because he wasn't really sure about it. And so I was thinking that, because we had talked about a little bit, that maybe you would be the right person to contact him if we wanted to give him some context as to why we did it and make a little more of a story than just the one line.
Right.
So I invite you to do that.
Okay.
I think he would be receptive to hearing from us
Okay.
about what we want to do. And I don't think it's not going to make it into this week's, but it could make it into next week's, which, it's not that time sensitive, so that would be a good thing. And,
Okay, thank you.
And the second thing related to that subject is that, Nelia and I had a remote meeting with the representatives of Bank 5 in Fall River, who had reached out to me about, I had reached out to them about the details of the mass housing loan program. And out of that came their request to have a meeting with them. So we had this meeting with them, which was a very productive meeting. And I explained how I thought that the cesspool phase-out initiative that we had going on, that these housing loans could be very valuable to, because if you earn less than $6,800 max, I think it's, is it like
6,800?
I mean, 68,000, I'm sorry, $68,000. I'm saying that off the top of my head, not sure of the number, but anyway, somewhere in that range, you get a 0% loan, which you don't have to make any payments on until the house is sold or otherwise transferred.
Ooh, that's a good deal.
Yeah. And then if you earn up to $127,000 in income, you eligible for a 2.5% loan, which is amortized over 15 years. And so there's a maximum of $25,000 for the amount of the loan, but the bank indicated that they can kind of negotiate that with Mass Housing, and it's not unusual for Mass Housing, to raise the loan amount. And I think that they do that on a case-by-case basis. Anyway, so then I got a follow-up call or email the other day, which asked, in which the bank was interested in reaching out to all the owners on our cesspool list site and providing and giving them, sending them a letter which would outline the details of eligibility for the program. And she asked if it was public information, and I indicated that I thought it was public information, the list that we had, but before we made any decision about it, I would check in with Matt about it and bring it to the board to discuss. And I would get back to her. So I think Matt and I had a conversation. He indicated he thought it was public information. I mean, I think if it's a list that we have created, and obviously we shared it with the Watershed Alliance, who helped us with. So anyway, I do think it's public information. So if we're inclined to do that, and I don't know if there's enough time to discuss it further, but I said we'd get back to her that, we could ask to review the letter before it went out, or we could just provide them, Matt could provide them with the list or have the conversation. And I think it is just primarily, they want to do the public information about it because they're one of the participants in the program, and I think it would be, a really good thing. And I don't know how that would fit into the letter that we are working on, which is also going to go out to those members, those homeowners who are on the list. So I thought that we should not necessarily coordinate it, but just think about how those two things would fit together.
Great. Well, thank you for your legwork on that.
Mhm.
That's really encouraging.
Yeah.
Very encouraging.
And because one of the concerns we've heard back to us was the cost of upgrading cesspools
Right.
without necessarily having a transfer where you have, when you sell the property, obviously you have cash flow. I have a couple of thoughts. One, in terms of the list itself, we know that there was, I want to say 220, 320, 220, I can't remember exactly, but several hundred. We know about 15% have submitted, have approved plans in place. Some of those probably have been installed, and I guess they still, I don't know what the timing is for getting the loan. They may still be interested, but if it's been installed, they've had to pay, I presume. So we may want to weed those folks out.
Yeah.
So I would do an
Update?
update of that list.
Yeah.
So that's one thought. The second thought I have is, we also have this pool of 700 or 800 properties where we don't know the status, and we know the house is at least 50 years old, so it's likely to, and I see it's 10:30, so we're gonna have to stop here and hold that thought. We haven't done a mailing to those folks yet, but now that we have an additional 2-year deadline, it's probably, the more time we give them to figure out what they have is a good thing. So we should factor that into the discussion. And the third thought, just really briefly,
Yeah.
is that whatever information we gather, we should share with our member communities as part of the collaborative, because you've done all the legwork, let's take advantage of that, and, this is an issue with many of the other communities, because they have a lot of septic systems. And I don't think it's specific to cesspool upgrades, it's any failed system that
Right.
has to be upgraded, so, okay.
Right, yeah. Oh, and related to the letter, our letter to, is that I did have discussion with the Watershed Alliance, and they're prepared to assist us, as they did in the first letter, in the mailing.
That's wonderful news, because our budget is very slim.
Yeah, so.
Okay, can we hold that thought, because
Yeah.
I apologize. We are running a little behind. I should have announced, we should have taken a break for our 10:30 variance hearing with Zenith Engineering for 47 Milk Avenue. MJC Holdings is the property owner. This is a 2-bedroom repair with a stone bed and microfast system on a 9,600 square foot lot. Good morning.
Good morning.
You may take it away. For the record, this is Niall Zager from ZCE, Zenith Consulting Engineering. Niles Zager, Z-A-G-E-R.
Thank you. So we're here before you with a septic upgrade. It's an existing 2-bedroom home located at 46 Milk Ave. As you can see, it's a very small, tight lot. Luckily, we were able to get over 100 feet from all the wells, our locust well as well as the abutting wells. However, because of the width of the lot and just how it's situated, we were not able to get away from there's a high water table there, as you can see. So what we did was we're proposing a stone and pipe system, leaching system, with a microfast. We're doing the microfast only because we're trying to get the 50% reduction in the footprint and the reduction in the separation of the water table from 4 feet to 2 feet. Because of the wall, just to try to keep the cost down and try to make it a little bit more buildable. Otherwise, that wall would have gotten over 4 feet tall, would have required building permits, and it would have gotten kind of out of control. So we feel as though this is really the best suited, scenario for this site. And so basically, we're asking for the reduction from 4 feet to 2 feet. We're asking for a separation from inlet and outlet of the septic tank, inlets to water table within 12 inches. We are proposing monolithic H20 tanks for both tanks, and we are proposing rubber loops at all the inlet and outlets for water tightness. There was a sieve analysis done because it was obviously too wet. And we're asking for a reduction from 2 to 1 on the number of deep holes, just because of the size of the lot. And I believe that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Great, thank you. Let me turn first to Matt for his report.
The only one concern I have is that the reduction to the groundwater is only going to leave a little under 6 inches to the groundwater, right? Because you're going to 2 feet and the groundwater is at 18 inches.
It's 2 feet above the water table.
It's 2 feet above the water table,
Yes,
2 feet above the 18 inches.
correct.
Okay, it's still very close, so, but that was my only concern for that. Otherwise, everything was fine.
But it's consistent with what's allowed under the
It is.
DEP approval?
It's consistent with what's allowed, it's just a
Okay.
concern of mine.
Okay, all right, I just want to clarify that.
What are you concerned about, Matt?
It's just close to the water table, it's over there, it's very wet and high water table, and I get it, they want to keep the cost of the retaining wall down. It could be pricey for a retaining wall. That was just a concern of note, just to be noted. That's all. That's it.
Questions, comments?
No, I don't.
As usual, I have a minor thing, very minor.
Yes.
Can you update your plans in future? You're still referencing the 2016 environmental code, and it's now 2023 because they had the new,
Okay, absolutely.
or just eliminate the date. You
I
know.
can do that. Okay, thank you for catching that.
She's very
And
good.
you addressed the abutter wells, they're not on the plan, but they're more than 100 feet away.
I believe we're showing the circles. Yeah, you can see the circles that are coming in, it's just that
Okay, those are for
that's
the, yeah.
those are the circles from your running well.
Yeah, it just, I didn't see
They're not on there.
they're
Yeah.
too far. Okay, yep, no, that's what I assumed. And I know the buoyancy calculations are right, so that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, if there are no other questions or concerns, I would entertain a motion. We'll need a 2-bedroom deed restriction, hold harmless con approval, and the LUAs. Anybody ready to do
So
that?
I can do that.
That'd be great.
So I move to approve the plan for JC Holdings at 46 Milk Ave, a 2-bedroom repair on a plan dated 8/28/23, subject to the following conditions: Conservation Commission review, 2-bedroom deed restriction, local upgrade approval, for reduction in the size of the SAS from 667 feet to 334 square feet, per a DEP second use approval, a reduce in the separation of groundwater from 4 feet to 2 feet, and a reduction of the deep hole per disposal from 2 to 1, approve the sieve analysis, and requiring a hold harmless agreement. Thank you. Hold harmless agreement. Had a brain.
And the reduction of the 12-inch separation.
Oh, I guess I didn't pick that up. Where's that?
That's the first one.
Is the first
Oh, okay, a
one.
reduction in 12-inch separation from,
It's the new separation distance,
It's a 1 inch.
1 inch.
no, from 1 inch. Okay, yep. Thank you.
Okay. Motion.
Do we need the 2 times your total nitrogen testing as well? or no?
We
No.
do not in
Okay.
this case.
Yeah. Because this is remedial.
Yeah.
Okay.
Voluntary.
Hmm?
And voluntary.
And voluntary.
And
yeah.
voluntary,
Mhm.
okay, great. So I second that.
So motion made and seconded to approve the project at 46 Milk Avenue with those conditions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. And thank you. And I don't know if you were listening to our conversation before, you could perhaps mention to the homeowner this loan program that we're just learning more about. I don't know what their income level is, but that might be something. We'll get more details. We'll probably get more on our website eventually, but Bank 5 is the local lender for that mass housing program, so that might be of interest to them, as well as the town community septic loan program.
Thank you for that info.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thank you, you too. Okay. I believe it's time we can call the agenda, the 10:40
10:40.
hearing, if I can just get mine.
I'm ready.
Good, Mr. Potter. Find my agenda. No, I have it. I was just looking at it, so I can call it correctly. Okay, I am calling the 10:40, discussion. With Len Potter for 3 Burrard Court. Raymond Parent is the owner, a 4-bedroom new construction, quick 4 with Advantex, with a request to delay installation of the D-night portion of the SAS system. So we'll,
Mr. Parent came in a couple of months ago and spoke to the board about this very subject.
Mhm.
And then he's thinking, and he's in a financial bind, so to speak, with the money he spent in the house, and he explained all that before.
Mhm.
So he's had conversations with Matt, and Matt spoke to me about it. And he said the best thing to do would be to speak to the board, of course, to delay this installation of this unit, until such time he could possibly handle it financially. And we'd ask him for 3 years.
Mhm.
So he can't be here today. He's out trying to make a living. So I told him I'm in town. I'll come in and speak to you about it. So
Thank you,
it's
Mr.
his
Pye.
plea, not mine.
Oh, well, thank you for representing him.
Matt can speak to what Mr. Parent talked to him about. So.
Okay, and I will just, before we start, just reiterate to you, I don't know if you heard the discussion about this mass housing loan program. It's a 0% loan for low to moderate income and a 2.5% for up to 127,000 roughly income. So we are going to get more information available. That might be, and Bank 5 is the local lender for that. So that might be of interest for him.
Go through Amelia?
No, this would go through Bank 5.
Bank
If you
Five.
do Bank 5, yeah.
That's okay.
That's the local, it's for the mass housing loan program.
Yep.
And you are fully aware of the community septic loan program. So those are maybe another option that might be helpful to him. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Matt for your response, and then we'll open it up to the board.
So I spoke with Mr. Parent about this, and like Lenny said, we talked about possibly approaching the board for a 3-year extension from installing D-Night. So we could install in a conventional system to get them into the home, and then 3 years down the road, put in add a D-Night system to that conventional system. So, I mean, that's basically what it's here for, is to ask, he's asking that. I mean, if the board, I think there's gonna need to be some conditions, right? We're gonna have to place on that and make it pretty structured and formal. And I think Phil can talk probably a little bit more about that. As far as the plan that was approved in February of '22, we'll have to get a new plan resubmitted without D-Night and showing a conventional system, approve that one, and then when the time comes for the add the D-Night, they'll have to submit something, a plan showing the addition of D-Night. I don't, Phil, do you want to talk about the variance part of it and the formal, there's gonna have to be a variance from our reg, I think, and, I would recommend to the board that we set, some pretty strict timelines as far as when we want to see, and Donna had mentioned this to me earlier, maybe 2 years out, we want to see the process to start get going, plan submitted, and just the process, because it could take, months for something to start to finish.
Okay,
Okay, well, just for the record, I would say this is not the most sympathetic case for this kind of request, which you've actually not ever received this kind of request before, just, given the property and the timeline and his opportunity to make other choices in what he chose to spend to build this house, so, but,
His trap, excuse me, his trap was that if he'd have acted when he bought the lot, he would have been prior to the implication of the law. So it's his own fault, he knows that.
yeah. But even in the years since he, this plan was approved, I would just guess he made choices about where to put money in for the house, which, but let's just, I guess, deal with the cards that are on the table at the moment, just because.
As I said, I'm not pleading here to plead for him.
I do understand that, but just,
I have no sympathy one way or the other.
And so, I mean, my feeling about it is consistent with what Matt was saying, which is, kind of from a procedural part, we should treat this as a variance under our regulations, that it would require submitting, a revised plan so you can get a certificate of compliance and move ahead to install it and get an occupancy permit. So it just seemed to be that would be required. And the scenario reminded me of what we did with the situation on Route 6 with the design flow, where, we created, a consent order that set out, certain provisions, and how those would be addressed. And I don't know, and so, in terms of filing a revised plan, and, notification, when construction would commence. And to me, the biggest concern, just because of the circumstances that led up to this in a way, which is to really ensure compliance. And so I was suggesting to Matt to have provisions in the order which would make it clear that the penalties that we've set forth in our regulation would apply if the deadlines were not met. And if other board members agreed, and again, if we had to go to court to enforce it, that Mr. Parent would be responsible for paying for our court costs, just because
Right. We don't want to open a barn door, shall we say? given his
So,
discretionary choices that he's made.
Yeah, because, because who knows where we're going to be budget-wise 3 years from now, and we don't want to have an unenforceable order. So that would, and that he would, and that it would, and he would agree to the provisions that he understood, and he agreed to the provisions in the, in the order.
Right.
So, and we would just make that conditions of the variance.
You have to sign a consent letter.
Essentially,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Laying
Yeah.
out what
Yeah, and,
timeline and requirements along
yeah.
the way.
yeah. So that's, so that was my framework.
Okay. Donna?
So I certainly feel some sympathy for his situation. However, it's the situation he's in is of his own making and not something that the Board of Health is responsible for. However, I do feel that if we do allow him, I agree with Phil, if we allow this, that we have to have very specific, the letter, what has to be done when, and then what his responsibilities are for any legal costs that would be incurred if he was not able to. Because I can see this, if he doesn't do it in the 3 years, then we have to take him to court. And that's an additional burden on the town, because every time we have to go to court, and when there are legal issues, it bears more cost for the town. And I'd like to prevent that from happening.
That's okay. Well, it's not loud enough to bother anybody, and
Yeah.
we didn't have sound the first part of our meeting. Okay, well, I can go along with the notion of setting up through a variance hearing and setting up a conditions to allow an extension for the D-night component. I just have a technical question, because I'm not, explain how the mechanics of adding D-night.
What I would do is, basically, put in a regular 1,500 gallon tank.
Yeah.
And then dump that effluent into would have to go into a senior layer, because the Advantech sits on top of the tank, so the ingress wouldn't match. So what I would do is gravity a 1,500 gallon to the D-box, and then disconnect that pipe after, and dump the effluent from the septic tank into the D-main component, a single layer, that is one tank, and dump that into the D-box after that.
Okay, so you have to design a standard septic system with that in mind.
Right, exactly.
in order to
Exactly.
make
So
it work.
Is that some,
What was dumped from the original tank, was the regular tank, into a D-main tank, and then into the D-box.
Okay.
Disconnect the D-box from the regular tank, and dump that into the single layer, and then dump it into the box.
Oh, okay, so you originally had proposed Advantex, and now
Yeah,
you're
but the
thinking,
Advantex sits on top of the tank.
yeah,
So that means that I would have to have the regular tank come up high enough, and then the Advantex would stick out of the ground like 2 feet.
mm,
Advantex box is like 32 inches from the top of the tank to and the inlet's about 4 inches on the top of the tank.
okay,
So it's a gradient.
okay. So Advantex doesn't work with a phased approach in this case, so you go,
I even thought about putting an Advantex tank in, but the problem with that is that I'm gonna pump up to it. So I'm just gonna put it a single layer, because it's a straight line.
okay, but then you need a new tank, a singular
No,
tank.
the tank that he puts in now can stay.
Okay,
The effluent from that tank, instead of going into the D-box, will go into
into
the
the
D-box.
singular, okay, all right.
Well, this, I mean, you know, so you could submit a plan now
Yeah,
and get that approved, or you could see what has evolved, so to speak, in the subsequent 3 years and submit that plan at the time. I don't know if we have a preference,
I do.
you know, to do that. Of course, you could always come in and ask to amend the plan. So, I mean, you know, maybe the most secure thing is to approve the, so you've never really done this, but, you know, approve the standard system plan and then approve the revised plan under the variance and do it there, so we would have a plan, and then, you know, should the economics or the technology change in a way that it was preferable, you know, to do something other than that, you would have the option to, you know, ask to revise the plan at the point that you were ready to do it, so, but probably the more secure thing is to have the two plans.
I
Yeah.
agree, I
Yes.
agree.
Okay.
Because then you've got to make a condition in the plan that this will go
That's
in
right.
3 years.
Right,
from
yeah,
now.
yeah.
You're better off to require
Mm-hmm,
a newly submitted plan, like Matt says, 2 years from the date of the approval.
Right, right.
It's going to come in, get approved.
right,
Ready
right,
to go in the 3rd year.
yeah, okay,
I don't like drawing plans, but.
yeah, no, so, okay, so. So,
Okay.
we could work this out, and if Matt needed my assistance, I would, and we could all get it, and then you could schedule for the, you know, when you were ready to proceed.
I'll call you back. I don't know if you're gonna miss it.
We'll get you out of here in shortly. Okay, so I think the board is willing to entertain a variance hearing
Yeah.
with a proposal that you kind of work out in advance the
I'll
phasing.
submit the revised plan with a standard system, with a letter requesting a hearing of the board for a variance on that subject.
Okay,
And we'll go from there.
okay.
Okay. And I think we could circulate a draft, you know, consent order so that, and then.
So we have it
and
ready.
get
Get a
it.
draft of it, and at least
Yeah,
we get here.
yeah, right,
He
right.
must have put the system in as soon as he can.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Okay,
Okay, all set?
thank you,
All right,
Mr. Potter.
Thanks.
Bigger and better things.
You're a busy guy.
Okay, so back to our agenda. Let's circle back, I apologize for the break in discussion about the loan program.
Right.
So I had mentioned, what had I mentioned? I had mentioned, let me think about this. The cesspool list, upgrading the cesspool
Yeah.
list, trying to potentially incorporate the pool of unknown
Oh.
septic systems. Because the way those are coded is based on the houses earlier than 1970 or 65 or something like that, so likely to be a cesspool. We don't know for sure because we have no record. I don't know if we want to incorporate the loan information in that packet.
Well,
but
we,
that's-
we
that might be
could,
premature.
so that would probably be a decision of the banks. I mean, we could inform them that we have this list and that we believe that there would be people on this list who could be interested, but
Yeah.
I think it's really up to them, and so, and how they want to frame the letter, and which is why I thought, because it will, but we ought to, I guess, just hadn't really thought about that before. So I could inquire of them whether they would be interested in that, because then what they could do is file, that would also require them to make, I wanted to have them make a formal public records information request. So it was clear that we were responding to a public information request in making this information available to them. So I guess we could just start a dialogue about it, and see what they say.
As you're talking through that, I think probably at this point it is premature because we haven't reached out to them at all yet.
Right,
So that might be putting the cart before the horse.
yeah,
So, strike that idea. That wasn't necessarily such a good one. Let's focus first on the cesspool
I think
list,
that's right.
getting it cleaned up in terms of making sure that we're only communicating with people who have not completed their cesspool upgrade yet.
right.
But it does prompt the upgrade in our regulation, or the update in our regulation, and the information about this loan program sort of dovetails in terms of thinking through we should move forward within the next few months to reaching out to those other homeowners who may also be subject. They may well have cesspools, we just don't know because we have no plan on file. And then at that point, we'll have more experience with how it went with the communicating around the mass housing loan program, and we can figure out, where to go from there. And maybe, our first step is for those homeowners is for them to submit information about their septic system, and some of them will not be cesspools and some of them will be, so we can refine that list. Let's focus on this known cesspool list for now.
Yeah,
and
I
use
think
that as a
that's
dry
right,
run.
and
I
just,
think,
right,
that's
right.
okay. So yeah, I'm encouraged by that potential program.
Yeah, I think it'll be positive, and I just think, well, I think that we were talking about like composing for our letter out.
Mhm.
Like, is it realistic to think like it'll be going out next week or something? Like you would compose it, because and then we could talk to, the Watershed Alliance about the processing of it.
Sure.
Or do we want to, so, I mean, I think it would helpful if we did our letter before the bank sent their letter. I don't know how quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's what I'm saying, so that I could also then say, here's the timetable that we are on, and then we still have to upgrade our list, so I think we're, so I think we have the steps that are involved kind of worked out, and then I could communicate with the bank just to say, here's kind of the timetable, you need to submit this, and this is what we're doing, and then if they're amenable to doing, if we want to, if they want to, is just to, take a look at what their letter says, so that we're comfortable with what their letter says.
Okay.
And we're talking about, just to clarify for me, we're just talking about the known entities of
Yes,
cesspools
yeah,
and
yeah.
not the ones we don't
Right.
know what they have yet.
Right, yeah. I
And-
mean, I just think we've got a lot to chew on already.
Mhm.
And I think, given that the list is so large, that we should talk about, well, this kind of ties a little bit to what my other update was, but, just think about, are we going to send a blanket email to over 600 people, or are we going to somehow think about how we want to phase it in or prioritize things, so.
Yeah.
Anyway. And so I think we have that. So I just go to my last little update thing, which is related to this, which was, so as part of my working with the Climate Resiliency Committee, I've been reading state documents about that. And it turns out that the state has identified an environmental justice zone within Westport. I mean, they've done this for every community in the Commonwealth, an environmental justice zone, which includes income factors, minority factors, language factors, and so and I thought initially that it could be helpful to Westport's zone, which is kind of generally bordered by Sanford Road and Route 28 and Route 6 and kind of some little triangle, is just based on income. And it's a percentage of the town's median income. And I thought it would be helpful if we had used our cesspool list to map the sites that had cesspools that were in the environmental justice zone. And then it occurred to me, in speaking to Mike Burrows about this, that he was up for or willing to do a map of all the cesspools. So I think in a short while, and do an environmental justice overlay. So I think Mike is going to generate for us a map that uses our database to map all the cesspools in town and identify those in the environmental justice area. So that's my third piece of news.
Okay. I thought Roberta had already mapped them.
What she has is Google Earth, snapshots of Google Earth. I don't want to say this, so that if you were sitting in front of Roberta's computer, you could use what she did to interactively look at the sites. But because I first went to her, but she can't generate a paper map or an interactive map where we could just look at different areas. We could just move around and look at different areas of the town and just see what the concentration was, or generate a full she said the only she could do is take snapshots
Okay.
of particular, like, here's the Google Earth scene of this area, and snapshot it.
Okay.
Mike said that he could just take that database and essentially put it into an interactive map, is
Okay.
what I understood, and create a picture of it.
All right.
Just like a GIS, like, you know, we've gone on the GIS mapping, and you can zoom in and zoom out and, you know, print off various sections of it, and she couldn't really do that.
Okay, I'm gonna follow up then with Michael, because I've been working with the Buzzards Bay Coalition on it.
Oh,
And
okay,
they wanted to do some mapping as well, so.
okay, all right, so,
Between
yeah,
them,
yeah.
that would be great.
Yeah, so it didn't really start off in that way, but I just thought that it was a way, not guaranteed, but I thought because the environmental justice segment was just identified by income, it kind of gave us a clue as to, or a greater probability that some of those sites within the EJ area would be low income, and that then we would be aware of that, or we could direct, you know, information about low income financing to those particular sites. But now we've moved beyond needing to do that in a certain way because of the solicitation I got from Bank 5.
Right.
So, but I thought the mapping thing would be helpful to look at, because then we can do all sorts of overlays on it too, if we wanted to, you know, of resource areas and other things that going forward might be helpful for us to know.
And we already have a map, don't we, from the Integrated Water Management Plan of contaminated wells?
Yes, we do.
So
Yeah.
that would be good to.
Yeah, right,
Integrate.
right,
Okay.
right. So, and actually, the Kleinfelder person who I've been dealing with has been very helpful in my reaching back out to him. I don't know if if I've knocked on his door too often, but to go back and provide us that data. So it's possible that they, you know, would be willing to give us the spreadsheet for that, and that could also be input into the map.
Great. Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah,
Anything else?
that's it.
Okay, Donna, your updates, if you have any.
Do we have any updates? I'm going to meet with Olive to talk about plans for next year's Mental Health Awareness Month and any other activities that she's working on. And I did want to talk about the shorelines. I know that if everybody didn't see it, there's a wonderful article in Shorelines that Phil wrote about the loan program, which was very helpful. And so hopefully more people will read it and understand what's available.
Yeah, there's the septic tax credit too.
Yeah.
The tax credit. I told a friend of mine who's working on getting a septic system about the tax credit, and she was very happy to hear about that. So in terms of Shorelines articles, I said I would do one November, December. Any suggestions?
I do have one. Maybe Olive has done a great narrative around opioid issues and overdoses and harm reduction and all that kind of stuff. And that would be a great jumping off point, because I saw this statistic of, in the last 5 years, was it 41 overdose deaths in Westport? That's not insignificant. So it's clearly a concern in town that we should address. And the article or the write-up that Olive did is a lot of research, a lot of technical information, but converting that into a community outreach kind of document, that might be one between you
Okay,
to
we
work
can talk
on,
about that,
or,
yeah.
so that's one topic.
Do we now, through the town nurse, make Narcan available?
Yes, we've
Yeah.
had Narcan available. and
Right, that's what I thought.
I've talked about that before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
but,
yeah.
but reiterating that, the local
Right.
resources
Yeah.
and, she's got more, like, county-based resources and others,
Mhm.
that, take back, drug, prescription medication drop-off box and all that, kind of refreshing this, syringe disposal box, that kind of
Okay.
stuff. It never,
I can connect it with upcoming holidays and stress and substance use
yeah.
somehow, but, okay.
And just, the stress around, sort of world events and stuff like that.
Well,
I'm
that's
sure-
that's heavy on my heart right now.
Yeah.
So,
So a lot of people, I'm sure, are struggling. So that would be another holiday sort of oriented one. I think we'll want to do one perhaps more specific also on the Mass Housing Loan Program,
Mm-hmm.
or certainly put it on our website. But that can probably be a January thing if we.
yeah, I'm wanting to do more of a sort of like focused on individuals in the community, bringing us, there's so much conflict and stuff happening too, so I keep thinking about how to take all these emotions that people are having and channeling them into positive stuff for public health, because when people don't channel their heavy hearts in the right way, it can turn out to be something unhealthy for the community. So I'm I mean, I know I did the article last year on gun violence,
Right.
new epidemic, and just talked about the warning signs and all of that, and I didn't know if I wanted to revisit that or not, but I'll talk with Olive and maybe something will come. But I'm just feeling very this humanitarian piece about public health and humanitarianism, to me, are hand in hand.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out a way to do it, especially since we're coming into the holidays now too.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great if you worked on that. I appreciate that. More outreach we do, the better off. Messages need repetition to sometimes reach the right people and
right.
or
Well,
when they're
that's-
ready for hearing.
It's a big part of, I mean, the shooting in
Maine.
Maine. They're talking about all the red flags, all the things that were happening, yet the intervention wasn't good.
Yeah.
Right, and that's part of, when I do mental health first aid, it's being able to identify those things that are critical to prevent a bad outcome. So those things are all floating around inside, and I've got to figure out a way to channel that so it comes out in a positive way. But I thought the article I did, the health notes I did about that, there was no backlash because of the way it was written, I think.
Right. Yeah.
And so, because the goal was, how do you keep bullets out of people, not about gun ownership, it was about that. And that's what I still, I'm still concerned about, so.
Okay.
But you'll see it when I
Yeah.
start it.
Follow up. Great. Thank you. Just a quick update from me. Short-term rental committee had been meeting weekly. We've got a couple weeks until our next meeting. The direction that the group agreed to pursue was to allow short-term rentals by right in town, but require a rental permit through the Board of Health to allow, us to check septic system capacity, drinking water quality, those kinds of things, and just have a sort of more control mechanism, rather than a special permit through the Zoning Board of Appeals, which is a pretty intense. I'm trying to think of the right word. It's a cumbersome, I think, probably, they wouldn't disagree, process with public hearings and high fees and so on, and so, but there's a lot to iron out in terms of getting something ready for town meeting change, a zoning bylaw change, so I'm not sure where we'll go from here. But the Board of Health is at the table. When there's something more concrete, I'll bring it back. So if there's any other thoughts that you guys have around Board of Health piece of it, I'm trying to stay away from the zoning. That's not our bailiwick, and however they decide that. There are some still controversial elements that the group is wrestling with around other kinds of zoning-related restrictions. So that is.
So how much more work is that going to be for us? And do we have the staff for that?
There would be a fee involved, which might allow us to, have the resources to do it. But that's part of the discussion, is figuring out how to manage that. And I will, Matt will weigh in more on that as well before we go.
To me, the other piece of it is what's going to inevitably be the compliance piece,
Yep.
which is a lot more resource intensive than the permitting part of it would probably be.
One of the things I learned, they shared a recent Donahue Institute study for Provincetown, assessing their, I believe they have currently short-term rental rules, but housing shortage and housing availability is a big issue there.
Yeah,
That was driving this study.
right.
But there's something called AirDNA, which scrapes all the data from Airbnb, Verbo, and other sites to give you a more accurate picture of short-term rental activity in your community.
Right.
That seemed like an interesting avenue to
Yeah.
explore.
Yeah.
We do know from the DOR data that there are somewhere close to 200 outfits operating as bed and breakfasts or short-term rentals that, for tax collection purposes. At the last public meeting, a local realtor estimated that there are probably 400 short-term rentals in town.
Right.
I don't know where that,
Yeah.
I don't think that's anecdotal. I don't know how accurate that is, but, so yeah, it's a big nut to crack.
Yeah.
And I think it's still pretty early in the process.
Yeah. Well, if we were, anyway, yeah, we should just, where we, if this would be done, by a bylaw, I think on the compliance side, it would be relevant to, for lack of a better word, to think about, establishing penalties for violation of the permit, for example, so that we clearly have authority to do that. And what else we might do, if there's issues around, noise complaints or whatever it is, that somehow our authority is clear, because I think it gets complicated if we're having to go into, like, for example, try to enforce housing code violations for the number of people in a bedroom, and that kind of thing. Whereas if it's clear this is the amount of people that can occupy this place, and it's in a permit, and we have authority to enforce the permit, and failure to comply has economic consequences, I think that would be really helpful, but I think that would have to be in a bylaw.
The framework that's being proposed, that would be a zoning bylaw with conditions associated with the Board of Health permit and so on, but the
Right.
details would be in a Board of Health regulation we would have to craft and adopt.
Right.
And that's the way it's done in other
Okay.
communities.
I
as
see.
well.
Okay. All right.
But
Yeah.
enforcement is clearly an issue.
Okay. Good.
All
right.
And one that has to be wrestled to the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's my
Thank you.
update on that. I don't think I have anything else, so let's go to, we know we have one unanticipated item for discussion
Okay.
at 36 First Street, and that is Matt to bring forward.
Yeah, so this came by the last meeting, and we did the motion to approve with the conditions. We missed one because it wasn't listed where it should have been, so we just need to add that they're requesting a setback from the bordering vegetated wetlands. Required setback of 50 feet. The proposed setback is 3.6 feet. That just is to be added to them.
3.6.
Well,
We don't have it in front of us, do we?
But we
I
have
have,
the minutes.
I have this updated letter here, if you wanted to see it.
Was that also approved by Concom? Was that seen, or was that a provision?
The motion was to approve the two-bedroom repair plan for 36 First Street with a waiver for the system setback to the site well of 87.4 feet. Conditions, 2 years, twice annual total nitrogen testing, 3 years of site well testing, hold harmless, and two-bedroom deed restriction. So I think the Concom was okay. 'Cause
Yeah, they
there
put
was-
it down, I've got the plans that came before us, and it was stamped by Concom.
Okay, so it would be to amend that motion to incorporate local upgrade approval for the setback to the BBW from 50 feet to 3.6 feet. This is,
Was it me that did the motion?
yes. This was for Sandra D. Coleman at 36 First Street. George Ayub was representing, and this is a Presbyterian singular. It's on page 3.
Okay, I see it.
Yep.
Okay, so I move that we amend the motion to include the setback to the wetlands from 50 to 3 feet, you said?
3.6.
3.6 feet.
Which, that is compliant with our local regulation, which required D-night, so.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to revise the motion for 36 First Street. All in favor? Aye, that's unanimous. Okay, thank you. All right, I think that's, are we all set? Matt, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, we'll be back to our regular schedule. Thank you, everybody, for accommodating this change today. So our next meeting will be Monday, November 13th at 4 p.m. Back to our regularly advertised time.
Okay. All right, well, being there's no more business, I move that we adjourn this meeting at 11:27.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.